Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another segment of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai. And on my left, we have Mr. Scott Ranf, who is the host of Wake Up Missoula. And then on my further left, we have Dan. And he's been on the cafe a few times, and he's decided to sit in with us today. And through the magic of green screen technology, we have placed ourselves on the set of a movie from the past, a 1955 film called The 7-Year Itch. And Dad, I know your grandfather's gonna like this because I'm sure he has seen.
We talked. My grandpa loves Marilyn Monroe. So.
Yeah, you and everybody else.
Oh yeah.
Now we lost her in 1962, and I was only about a year old or year and a half old at that time. But what's interesting is her movies have stood the test of time, and I think her legacy, wouldn't you say, more than even her movies, just her memory and just. I don't know, her iconic status, I guess.
I agree, Asaph.
Yeah,
Marilyn Monroe was an iconic sex figure from back in those days.
Yeah, back in the day. It's too bad you guys weren't there at the time when she was here, but she really took the world by storm. I mean, goodness, she did
had a brain.
A lot of movies. Her last movie was a movie called Misfit with Clark Gable. I don't know, it was no black and white film. One of them more serious, because she's known for those little cheesy films like, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and,
Was she in Some Like It Hot?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's always like kind of like those, in a way, those, if you kind of watch it nowadays with kind of like a lot of those social movements that are going on this last couple of years or so, it's just this kind of like the kind of treatment of Marilyn Monroe in those movies are kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what people do these days, gag me. But her movies might have been kind of silly movies, but fun silly.
There always seems to be like in the kind of like in the avenue of where they have a really pretty actress and then they have a bumbling guy.
Yeah, and Tom Ewell's character was kind of like that, at least in this film here.
Who else was it? Jerry Lewis played a lot of opposites of very attractive women.
Yeah.
Or just like, oh, lady, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And Jerry Lewis did a lot of those.
He did a lot of those
crazy, cheesy films. Do you have a favorite Jerry Lewis film?
I don't really.
Mine is I would have to
Cinderfella?
say Cinderfella. Yeah, I'd have to say that's
Cinderfella is pretty classic for sure.
What about you, Dan? Have you ever seen any of Jerry Lewis movies?
Not a whole lot. I've saw references.
You know who we're talking about, right?
Yes, I have enough to know.
They did the original Nutty Professor.
Yeah.
Before they did the remake with Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Which the remake is just as good, if not better, than Jerry Lewis's version.
Well, they probably have more to work with as far as
technology and all that stuff.
And special effects and things like
that.
Well,
they relied heavily on makeup for that movie for sure.
And didn't Eddie Murphy play all 7 parts?
Yeah, the Clumps. Yeah,
the Clumps. Okay, no, this is before the Clumps. The original remake of.
Because there was the Clumps in that. Oh yeah, the original. No, yeah, Jerry Lewis only played himself, and all he had to do is just I guess they put a leather jacket on him and they give him a little Jerry. A twirl.
Well, he was playing Buddy Love. Buddy Love was the character, and he was like the alter ego, I guess, if you want to describe it,
And that kind of carried on through a lot of movies, because the whole kind of like nerd. Dual identity kind of deal, because they did that with in Family Matters. Remember Steve Urkel? Steve Urkel had his alter ego.
Yeah, it was the what was that? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't remember that either.
Something Steve Bott or something, or
I
can't remember. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Where
So the same old plot.
They always seem to have those plots either in TV shows or movies, but it all basically kind of started with Cinderfella. No, not Cinderfella, but. Nutty Professor.
Yeah, that's it. And Dan, how have you been lately?
Good.
Good.
I got endorsed today for my we talked about the cookbook.
Oh, good for you.
So I'm not going to go into detail. He's still checking out to see.
Well, that's okay, but at least you're getting that started, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you were interested in cooking.
I have been for quite some time.
Cool. Yeah.
I grew up.
I used to be a nanny before I became a full-time pianist.
Wow.
No, seriously, this was years and years ago. But I'm no Julia Child in the kitchen, but I can cook well enough, like for families and taking care of children and stuff like that. I
could see you as Mary Poppins.
I did that. I was there you go. I was a full-time nanny. I worked for 2 families. I worked for a naval family at the time. This is years ago.
How old were you in this? when this happened.
This must have been, what, about 20 years ago, I'd say, maybe?
Oh, wow. How long were you doing
Or even more than that, maybe more
How
like
long
25,
did you
30 years
do it
ago.
for? Because you did.
Well, the
you
one
went to,
family...
Because you did Salvation Army for like 16 years, right? Out of
No,
Billings?
that was 12 years.
12 years, and that was Billings?
Well, no, it was, if I can remember, it was 5 years in California.
Right.
1 year in Billings, and then I think it was, it was 5 years in Billings. I had to get my notes out.
Because the Billings was the last thing before you moved to Missoula, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you started, going around playing the supermarket, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I didn't even know you were a nanny.
Yes, I was a
That's a whole
full-time
nother-
nanny.
that's a whole nother thing.
I used to get a lot of Fran Drescher jokes.
So-
You remember The Nanny, the
Yeah,
TV show?
right.
Yeah, I used to get called that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not necessarily rare to have a male nanny. Like back in those days, it was more like a butler.
Well, it's like Mr. Belvedere. It's no different. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
But see, I passed an intense background
Of
check with
course.
that Navy family. They checked me way back to
Oh
when I
yeah,
was in high
If you-
school.
I mean, like
They
the
went
Navy,
all that far
the Navy
back.
checks all sorts of background checks just to get on the base.
Yeah, so they did. So this Navy family, they checked me out, and since I was in high school, I was squeaky clean. I said, "Go ahead, sir. I have nothing to hide." And I can understand because he had 3 children at the time.
Yeah.
They're kind of probably all of age by now, but at
Yeah.
that time, he had a 2-year-old and let's see if I can remember. I think it was a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Yeah, it also helped that you also were a kid in the Navy as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, Air Force family.
Air Force,
So,
military
yeah.
family. So
So those were factors.
that didn't hurt.
And
of
being a
course.
musician didn't hurt either. you
Yeah.
know. And I could teach the older girl. She was taking flute lessons at that time, so I could just give her some theory lessons, Because I don't play the flute, but
Yeah.
the notes, the theory is pretty much
it's
the
all
same.
the same
Yeah, it's a
notation.
universal thing, yeah. So that was kind of fun. But to answer your question, let's see, the one family I worked for them for like 7 months.
Wow.
And then they rehired me a little bit later. I did an extra 5 months. The Navy family, I think I did almost about a year, something like that. At
Yeah,
that
I
time.
mean.
And then there were other families
My
I worked
sister,
for.
my sisters had nannies in the past for sure, and
Yeah.
their kids are starting to get old enough where they can go to preschool. So, like that's usually kind of how it works. Is
Mhm. And some of the families, some like the Navy family was a live-in job, but some weren't. Some were live-in and some were
Mr.
not.
Belvedere was the live-in nanny.
Yeah, but I did. I think I earned my keep with his
that
Navy
was-
family because he wanted me to watch his kids, but what he really wanted me to do was keep the house clean, like a lot of dusting,
Yeah.
cleaning the bathroom, and I cook for the kids. I'd have like their breakfast ready and things like that, and dinner when they came home from school. But they always waited till their father came home anyway, and they were like old school. They'd sit at the table,
Yeah.
and I'd just excuse myself. And this job was cool because they used to let me borrow the car, so I'd go out at night.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I could stay out as late as I want because I had to work till something like 5 or 6 when parents got home. Then I had a free evening, so they gave me the car keys. And I had a lady friend at the time, so we used to hang out a lot. That was
That's good.
so fun. It was so fun. But yeah, that was a fun job.
Yeah.
But when they finally decided to move, I didn't want to move.
Yeah.
So they helped me set up. I was already in Billings at that time. They lived in Huntley, was on the
okay.
outskirts. You know that little country road you go up.
Yeah. So they weren't even on a base.
No, they. So I was in Billings then, and you would go up that one narrow road past Shepherd, Montana,
Mhm.
and then eventually it becomes Huntley.
Right.
They lived out in that area.
Wow.
So I commuted back and forth. Well, when I went out, I should say, because I actually lived there. But yeah, I passed a severe, extensive background check, and that's how I got the job.
Yeah.
And it was fun. They treated me well.
So you were a nanny before you were in
Yeah, I did nanny work before I even came to Montana.
Okay, so you kind of did a nanny Salvation Army mixture.
That's
like,
correct. Yeah.
So when you weren't doing a nanny, you were a Salvation Army.
Right. And stuff
So
like that.
Salvation Army was kind of like your fallback in case you didn't have a nanny gig, or it kind of just depended upon.
I think it just depended because I was still doing my music too, so it's kind of a combination of all.
What
of
did you
that.
do? So what did you? You said you were in Vegas for a while too, right?
Yeah, I was a lot younger then. This is before I did the nanny thing. I was 26 when I was in Vegas.
And how long were you in Vegas for?
About a year or so. And I played with Pat Guidry and the High Rollers. That's the guy I told you about whose name was in the marquee with Tom Jones and Wayne Newton and all the rest. he was holding his own.
Yeah, we had another
Pat Gidry,
producer.
yeah.
We had another producer that used to do a show on MCAT. Andy from Andy's talk show. He used to do just like a variety, funny comedy show, or whatever. He also did a call-in show, which is always a bad idea. I don't know. I'm just telling you. If you're in public access, call-in shows are a horrible idea.
I like them a lot.
You like him, huh?
It's nice to talk to people, but most of the times you get a lot of negative comments thrown at you.
Yeah.
It's
And you gotta probably
it takes a
have
tough skin.
Yeah, a rhinoceros hide to shake
Hopefully.
that off.
Yeah.
You know?
But anyways, he's in Vegas now.
Okay,
He's a professional performer. He's on stilts all the time.
Okay.
He came to visit not so long ago, and besides, with the flights that are so cheap from Missoula to Vegas, it's pretty easy for him to get out of there.
Well, the second time when I played in Vegas, it was on behalf of the Salvation Army. That's when I was in my 10th year at that time, and they sent me to Las Vegas, and I was making $300 to $400 a day in my kettle because instead of ringing that bell, I would do my music, and of course, when you're doing a musical instrument outdoors, you're going to make a lot of money.
Right.
And Vegas had the weather for it, so it
That's
was a lot
good.
of fun. A lot of fun. But after about my 12th year, it was becoming physically harder for me to be doing that literally all day long and stuff like that. Playing all day long
Right.
and stuff.
Yeah, I
'Cause,
mean,
yeah,
you were a
you
trumpet
get-
player, right?
Yeah, and
And
I didn't, it was, it
and
wasn't
your
like
armature
concerts.
can really suffer on trumpets because
Yeah.
we've had it's hard for somebody who played trumpet in their younger years to play trumpet probably beyond 50 if they don't blow up
Well,
their...
I started when I was like 31. I did it for 12 years, and then of course it was getting physically harder as the years. And even though I stayed in a low register and just played songs, they weren't concerts. They were just songs like a Christmas song or
It's a lot of work. And
it was still a lot of
the
work.
armature is so small, and
Yeah.
then I've met people who have 6, 7 different armatures, top,
Yeah.
lip, up lip,
Mm-hmm. And it was
and
just,
they rotate.
and everybody's different when they get physically older, and it was getting harder for me to breathe too. I noticed, and stuff like that. But I knew how to play the piano all along, but I just wasn't using the piano a lot in those years. I did on a few performances off and on when I was like in my early 20s.
Yeah.
I used to play with the Dred Scott Review in Los Angeles, and I did a lot of piano.
Yeah, and I could probably start saying back in my early 20s because I just I'm over the hill.
You turned 30 last year.
It's always in the lead box.
For sure. But it's always just it's just another year.
That's all it was.
It's just another day or whatever.
Actually,
But it's always kind of it's so weird because when you see people out and about, you always get a variety of ages, but primarily the ages a lot of times you do see out and about and kind of doing all that stuff is in the 20s and younger.
But
and then you have 50s and over because they're with their kids who are now old enough to be kind of run around.
But
and
see,
whatnot,
you're about to enter your prime. You reach your physical prime in your 30s. They say around 31, 32, something like that.
Yeah, it depends. I don't know. Maybe I'll get into a P90X.
Yeah, you go.
And then I'll last a couple more.
Hey, segue to the movie. There you
Yeah,
go.
that's it.
Let's go into.
Okay, let's get into this film now. Dan, you've never seen this movie, have you?
No, I have not.
Your grandfather, you said he's a big Marilyn Monroe fan,
Monroe.
right? So I assume your grandfather has seen most of her movies and things like that. I would think.
Yeah, well, yeah. He stops every time he sees a picture of her. He's like,
Well, he's gonna get a kick out of this when he sees you and the rest of us.
He's gonna be like,
Yeah. What's your grandfather's name?
Herman C. Henry.
Hello, Mr. Henry. If you see this, which he will, we're on the set of The 7-Year Itch. I'm sure you'll probably know this movie.
Hey, Grandpa.
Well, anyway, this movie, Tom Ewell was the main character. I know he was overshadowed by Marilyn Monroe, but actually he was the main character. And he plays this publisher, like book publisher. And his wife and son go out of town.
Oh, that's convenient.
Well, no, they go on a trip, see, and it was really funny, and you'll see where I'm leading up to it. So anyway, his wife and his child goes out of town, but the kid forgets to bring the paddle for the kayak ride. The paddle is left home. So when Tom gets home and realizes his son forgets the paddle, he doesn't want to go back and drop it off a second time. And that's when Marilyn Monroe's character comes in. She moves in upstairs just temporarily because she's doing some toothpaste commercials. So that adds to the comedy right there. So then he gets smitten by her looks and her beauty, obviously, like everybody else does. So, and how she got his attention. She accidentally knocked a plant over up on the second floor when she moved in, which got into his patio, and that's how they became friends.
Yeah.
So he invites her over, and what was funny about the film was he was just such a nerd, a nerdy character, like the Jerry Lewis. Just every woman was out of his league, right? But he had this overactive imagination where he would think things that were there that were really not there, and that's what added to the comedy. So when you're watching a movie, you see what he's thinking, but nobody else is thinking it. See? But he's thinking it, and it's just really exaggerated. So he thinks he's like this ladies' man, which he isn't in his mind. So he invites Marilyn Monroe's character over. They have a little drink, but she's like way out of his league. Plus, she knew he was married, so she was not gonna, be interested in him anyway. And she wouldn't have been interested in him anyway, even if he was single. The only reason why she went to his apartment is because she didn't have air conditioning. So she was interested in his air conditioner. So every time she would pay him a visit, she keeps standing in front of the air conditioner getting cool while talking to him. But his imagination would run off and you would hear what he was thinking. So that's where the comedy came in.
Oh, yeah.
But, and then the landlords would knock on the door and see her there, and that would further add to the comedy. They knew that he was out of his league, but his imagination would kick in. So he would act like, with the neighbors and stuff, that he was just Casanova when he wasn't. They knew he wasn't, and so it added more to the humor. But at the end of the movie, what was interesting is when he was starting to get tempted for real, she steered him back to his family and his wife, and I just thought that was a pretty cool thing to do.
There was
no hanky-panky that went on in that or anything. It was a strictly comedy, and also he got jealous of his wife because even though he stayed home and was dealing with her, his wife went on an actual hayride with his next-door neighbor. So with his imagination running, he got ticked off. And so when the next-door neighbor came home, he punches the neighbor and knocks him out. And,
typical double standard.
Yeah, double standard, yeah. And so it was his wife that was kind of like getting a little familiar with
because these are usually comedies, and usually there's a lot of movies from back in those days that kind of follow the same plot point.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's always the other woman that turns out to be crazy.
Yeah, and so his wife was the one that was, she wasn't cheating or anything, but she got a little cozy with the hayride, which set him off with his imagination. Then he makes up with his friend.
Yeah.
And Marilyn Monroe's character encouraged him to go back to his family and take the paddle back.
Yeah, and old Hollywood back in those days were very, a lot of those movies were just very much like, okay, we tease infidelity, but we don't actually
They don't act on it. But what made this movie amusing was just the comedy because in his mind, they had a scene where he was drinking, and those guys, he wanted to be a bachelor while he was free from his wife for a while. And so he imagines Julie London. Now, I don't know if you know her. She was that famous singer from the past. She played in Emergency, the TV show, Nurse Dixie.
Okay.
Well, when she was a younger woman, she was a big band singer in real
Oh,
life.
cool.
She was a big band singer. So there was a scene where when he was drinking, and he imagines. Let me correct myself. I'm thinking of a different film. He was in a movie called The Girl Can't Help It with Jane Mansfield. Let me get that corrected. And so he was pouring his heart out to Jane Mansfield because he didn't have a girlfriend or anything, and she says, well, it's their loss. So he starts drinking, and he imagines Julie London singing to him.
Were any of these actors in like the Twilight Zone or any B movies?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because
it really depends. Like you said,
these
did a lot of
movies came out
TV.
these came out in the 60s.
'Cause
But he was in the 70s though.
Yeah, but he was in the movies too.
Yeah. But his career was more comedy movies.
Oh, so he was in movies well into the 70s?
Yeah, he got into television in the 70s.
Yeah, because the Twilight Zone lasted for like 64 to 68.
Yeah, no,
it
was
past
the Twilight Zone.
So neither one of those were in any Grindhouse
No,
films
these
or
people
Marilyn
these people here were mostly into comedy.
They were A-list stars, and usually Twilight Zone recruited C to B-list stars.
Yeah.
And then they would move on to big roles, like William Shatner was in 2 Twilight Zone movies.
Right, but see, in the case of this here, he started out in comedy, and like a lot of the people in Hollywood, when their careers started declining a little bit or they peaked, then they would go into television from the movies. Like the
Okay.
people in the
No.
40s, 50s,
Yeah.
and 60s. And Tom Ewell came around the 60s, and your grandfather will know him. He was one of the most popular comedic actors of the entire 60s. And then in the 70s, he was on a show called Beretta with Robert Blake. I don't know if you would know him. Robert Blake, he was a former child actor.
I'm not good with names, but I am really good with.
Well, your grandfather would probably know Robert Blake. He was one of the original Little Rascals, Robert Blake.
Oh, wow,
No,
really?
Yeah, no, really, he was.
Which one was he?
Let's see if I can remember the name.
All right. Well, Robert Blake was.
I can't remember the name.
A lot of his later roles in acting, he was always like a convict in a lot of the later roles, and he was in jail recently.
A lot of propaganda stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, he was one of the original Little Rascals with
Alfalfa.
Alfalfa. No, he was one of them.
Yeah, he wasn't the main guy.
I think he played Mickey or
he
something.
could have been
I can't
any
remember.
of those people.
Yeah, but anyway, Ewell went on to do television, and he did other television shows, and he had his own television show too in the 60s. It was a sitcom called The Tom Ewell Show.
Yep.
Your grandfather would probably know it. And
Yeah, a lot of those old comedians had their own show that lasted maybe a year or two.
Yeah, and that was his.
Because I remember Danny Kaye had a show.
Yeah, Danny Kaye had a show.
Did anyone want to play with the Duke?
No, he's never played.
Well, maybe not Tom Ewell.
Yeah,
But,
Tom Ewell doesn't seem like he's ever played in a Western.
No, I don't think so.
Because I know that.
He was just more
My
known for his
grandpa really likes the
comedies.
Duke, too,
yeah.
His comedies.
Yeah.
And even in television, he was in Taxi, which I
Yeah,
heard.
unfortunately,
That's a comedy.
John Wayne. Yeah, he was very typecast as a cowboy.
Yeah.
He didn't do too many non-cowboy roles unless he did World War II type biopics.
Well, he did play a detective in his later years too.
Yeah, but one of his last few roles was as Rooster.
Yeah, The Shootist. Yeah, The Shootist with Ron Howard.
Oh, was it?
That was his last picture.
That was his last
That was
picture.
his
The
absolute
really
last picture.
long movie.
The Shootist, yeah, the one
one
where
where
he
he's-
plays the retired gunfighter dying of cancer, and he wants to retire in peace, but the bad guys won't let him.
Yeah.
And Ron Howard befriends him.
Isn't he the one that he's after his granddaughter, like a kid is kidnapped by an Indian, and then he takes years to find him?
No, not that one.
Oh God, never mind.
No, you're probably thinking with
The
Kim
Searchers?
Derby. You may know this one. Well, that was one of it.
Yeah.
But he was in a movie. I think it was called Rooster Cogburn.
Yep, that was the sequel to True Grit.
Oh, well, no, I'm sorry, True Grit.
True Grit. No, there was a movie called Rooster Cogburn.
Yeah, I meant to
which
say
was a
True
sequel to True Grit.
Now, Kim Darby was in True Grit. She was the actress in that Star Trek episode, Mary Mary.
Is she the one that she played
the
the girl?
aging child?
the,
Yeah,
the
that
daughter?
girl that was like 300 years old.
Oh,
Did any of them play with James Dean?
oh, James
No,
Dean
James
was
Dean
very
goes
just
way
a drop in the
before
pan. He probably was in 3 movies his life.
Yeah. Well, he didn't live very long, James
No,
Dean. So
he didn't live long
unfortunately.
enough, but he was in a movie
But I
with
think he
Dennis
was like
Hopper.
in the mid-50s.
That's
yeah.
probably the closest tie to anybody. Dennis Hopper's been
Yeah.
in movies with pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And Dennis Hopper died about 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, but getting back to Kim Darby, she played in the Star Trek episode Mary Mary about those kids that were like 300 years old, and when they enter puberty, then they age quickly.
Okay.
See, they live for centuries as children.
Oh.
The moment they enter puberty, they age very quickly and then they die.
Wow.
So
That's sad.
Kim Darby's
Well, they're young
character-
for 300 years, so 300 years is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then
they're children for 300 years literally.
Yep.
They may grow a little bit, like
I mean, I think that's pretty good. You're pretty much in your prime, but then when you're over the hill, you're pretty much over the hill like that.
yeah, you get into
I
puberty
think
and
you
then
have
you
time
age
200.
quickly and you die. And so Kim Darby was in that episode, and she's the one that was in the John Wayne movie. She played the girl that hired John Wayne's character to look for the man that killed her father.
Yep. And then
And
they made a
Glenn
remake
Campbell
of it.
was in that too.
And they made a remake with it with Jeff Bridges
Yeah.
and Haley Steinfeld.
Mm-hmm. But some
No
movies, in
relation
my
to
opinion,
Jerry.
should be left alone. If they're classics, they should be left alone. But that's just my opinion.
I really liked it because the Coen brothers did a really good job with that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, you got to see. I mean,
Like
if you haven't
Keanu
seen the
Reeves.
remake, then you,
Okay.
you don't really.
Well,
have
I
to
didn't
say.
see this remake, but I've seen
They
some
did. The remake
remakes.
was really good. I liked how they ended it. The ending was very.
Okay.
It was much better than the ending of the original True Grit movie.
Well, I guess so. With the technology, like you were talking about.
It wasn't even technology. It was just like the story in terms of storytelling.
Now, then I have to ask you, what kind of movies do you like?
Quentin Tarantino movies.
Okay.
I like large genre movies. I'm just now getting into old classical movies.
Classical movies?
The last 2-3 months, I got a Roku TV set a little over a year ago and haven't explored it.
Okay.
So I'm looking for fantasy, action, it's a large range. Drum is okay. It depends on my mood. So if I usually play something in the background when I'm writing, when I'm doing different things. So I plan my day 3 hours before bed.
Okay.
3 hours in the morning, and then I go out throughout the day. But yeah, it's a hard question to answer. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No problem. This is getting an idea. Your grandfather will probably know this song, Night and Day, short version of Night and Day. But anyway, you said you're into the classic movies, so you mentioned people like Cab Calloway earlier, and Louis Armstrong. Well, I know you know these people. Mm-hmm. And
Muddy Waters, Sunhouse, all that.
So you were exposed to these people, or you just found
my whole life? Well, it was kind of in the background growing up. First was reggae. When I was in middle school.
Reggae? You listen to reggae music?
I don't right now because it makes me want to leave town and makes me want to go somewhere warm. So
yeah.
That, and then when I like, I don't listen to country, but when I was traveling, I was like looking for country for some reason when I was too far away from home, and it's like it was weird drive to find a country song, and so I was living in San Diego. I just like couldn't find a country station. And finally, I just like it bothered me so much. I just came home. Okay. So it's kind of like that with reggae, kind of that with country, but everything else is just broad. I like Natasha Atlas. Okay. I like pop music. I like a lot of different.
Well, that's interesting. Someone as young as you are, familiar with those people from the past. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool when younger people can be exposed to people of the past. Especially way back, because Louis Armstrong goes back to like the 1920s. So. Oh yeah,
and even further back. I mean, in middle school, like elementary school, I got into ragtime, and that carried on. Kept coming back. Like when Big Band came out, my brother and I, my little brother Matthew, and I got into swing. We started dressing up, and we were at middle school. We were Mormon, so. We dressed up in our Sunday best at school, acting like we're gonna take control of the school, like old mobsters or something. But I mean, pretty much for dances, we got tuxedos or whatever for school dances, and I mean everyone did for the most part. I mean, you had Squirrely Nut Zippers, you had Big Bad Voodoo Daddies and Cherry Poppin' Daddies, all in the one. 3 years of my high school years, so pulling that from Cab Calloway and all that other stuff that came in and out of my life, I stuck to Cab Calloway after high school. So
here's you'll recognize this song. Recognize it?
Oh yeah.
Sing it.
Minnie Moocher. You know the words, Dan?
Yes and no. I just don't want to do it justice. I'm not in my prime right now.
You want to sing it? Go ahead.
I'd have to practice it a couple times. Maybe drink some water or orange juice or something. I'm not sure which you're on the first one. I'm a little shy. Heidi, Heidi, hi. Hody, 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 hody.
Yeah.
Hody, hody, hody.
Doodly, doodly, da, da, da.
Yeah.
Skiddly, da, da, da. That happens to me every time.
Something like that. Well, nice try, guys.
Yeah.
That's better than I could do. So, you have Dan and Scott's singing debut, huh?
Yeah.
Sing a Minnie
Well,
Moocher.
I sing whenever I like it.
I'm working on.
I'm not really that shy when it comes to singing. I don't sing karaoke though.
There you go. I wouldn't do that either. I would stand in front of people singing karaoke.
And like,
that's not me.
And then of course, Patty, she checks out the cameras here and she films herself singing karaoke, and she wails.
Well, she's pretty good though. She's got a voice.
She loves doing it. Yeah. And she goes 110%, whether the mic likes it or not.
Well, she's sang on the cafe a few times too, Patty. So hi, Patty, if you ever see this.
Patty.
I don't know if you know Patty or not.
Patty
Reed.
Yes, I know Patty.
Yeah,
she's a really cool person.
She used to be the co-host of this show when I first started it, but this was years back. Yep. She did it for like a year.
Did she ever get to Ireland?
No. She still talks about it though.
She'll make it.
I hope so.
I gave her. I gave her some information about. They have a financial fitness class through Homeward, and Homeward really helps people who either want to get a house or renters' rights and that kind of stuff. So they're really good nonprofit here at Missoula, and they provide affordable housing for everybody.
Yeah,
which is good. Homeward is really good. They're helping me with buying my first home.
They are.
Yep.
Okay. I ought to get in on that myself.
You should.
I'll get the info from you when we're done taping.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'll show you the website. We'll print out their page and then...
Yeah, do that. I'd like to check into that.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, I'm getting props. At that age, I should get a house too while I'm still young enough, don't you think?
Yeah.
Can you believe it? I'm going to be 60 years old next month.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. 60.
What day?
October 26th.
So it's right after mine.
You're born October 25th?
October 12th.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
yeah, my brother was born October 11th. So.
Yeah, but you're not going to be turning 60. I can't believe
I'll be
that.
turning 37.
Wow.
Well, you don't even look, and you certainly don't look 30.
You don't
look 37, so.
That's
I don't ever intend to look 37.
And you don't even look like you're in your 60s. Like.
Well, don't put me there yet. I got a couple more weeks to go.
Yeah, because my mom's in her 60s and she doesn't look like it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think a lot of people are starting to not look their age these days now. I think it might be the food we're eating or something.
No.
I don't know.
It just depends. Medical science is getting better and better.
Yeah, that
might just having that one pill that'll cure everything. Everyone is looking for that all cure all.
Well, you can watch those infomercials of the movie stars.
They're
30.
There's always going to be snake oils. It's like, buy this. Hey, if you drink out of this empty cup, it'll bring you longevity.
Yeah.
Only for 12 easy payments of $29.99.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we'll send you this bowl. So you just have to eat out of this bowl.
And then that crazy
you won't feel like you taste anything, but it's real.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
3 parts this, 5 parts that.
All right, Dan. You wanted to read one poem. We'll get squeezing a poem.
I don't have anything that matches this. These are very, very, very dark.
Oh,
very
okay.
grim.
Well, let's save it. Maybe we can save it for another cafe. But getting back to this more delightful, so like I asked you didn't see this movie, right? You never saw it. Have you seen any of Tom Ewell's movies at all?
I'm not very. I mean, like I said, I'm very hard with names. I like stories. I like plot. I like.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the substance.
Sometimes it's not about the people that are in the movie. It's about the
like
if you like Quentin Tarantino because it's a story-driven movie.
The Addams Family TV series I really loved growing up had 2 actors that switched in the first season. I had no idea.
Yeah,
they did that a lot.
Because
a lot of actors looking for jobs back in the day shoot the pilot. And then after the fact, it's like the studios are just like, I don't think they really match.
Sign your contract.
And then a lot of times they move on to other things.
Well, a lot
of people do pilots. There's a lot of actors and actresses that are A-list actors who have made pilots that have never seen the light of day.
And being so far from New York to LA. I mean,
and some do pilots and then just decide, like Jeffrey Hunter. He's the actor that played in the very first Star Trek episode, the 1964 pilot. But he was a famous movie star, so he wanted to focus on.
Was he the original Star Trek Captain Kirk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was Captain Christopher Pike.
Oh yeah.
And they asked him if he would
they
do the
reprised
series.
His role in the new Star Trek movie.
Where
he plays the major role.
Nice. Yeah, he did the pilot
character
episode. But he didn't want to commit to the series because he was a famous movie star. He was doing all kind of movies like King of Kings, played Jesus in King of Kings, and all those other movies. Talk about motion picture movies. So he didn't want to go into television. So, but the point I'm making is some of these people do like one episode on a pilot, and then they do other projects, and they have to get someone else, like Elliot Gould in MASH.
Yeah.
He was a big movie star too, Elliot Gould.
I like the MASH.
He did. Well, I'm talking about the movie.
Oh,
the movie MASH. And then when the series came out,
and he's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah. Alan Alda took over the role in the television series.
Have you seen The Razor's Edge?
I know of it.
Isn't that Bill Murray's movie?
Yeah, there was a book that came out. I could never get my hands on it. I started reading it, and then it disappeared. I never saw it again.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe you can check on Amazon or something.
Yeah.
Because that was the movie that Bill Murray wanted to make. That was his passion project, but he did Ghostbusters, so the studio would pay for him to do Razor's Edge, which didn't get as much notoriety as Ghostbusters.
It was one of his most serious roles, and critics actually identified it as probably one of his most realistic character he's
but
ever
it
played.
didn't do good with the public.
he didn't do.
They wanted
Unfortunately,
they wanted
Bill
a
Murray
clown.
wanted Bill Murray. They didn't like Bill Murray as anything else, but what we know Bill Murray as. And then, of course, when he did Lost in Translation, that was his bridge over to doing more.
Coming back to raise his
Coming
back.
back, and then also Rushmore.
Right.
It's a comedy, but he plays it very straight
Yeah.
and very serious, just a self-loathing man.
Well, people got to remember that these people are professional actors. They don't want to just do one thing all
I know.
their lives.
I mean, some people like to stretch their acting chops, and
I
some
think Bill
people
Murray was one
like
of
to
those people
coast
that
on
did,
the
yeah.
roles of their past
I
movies.
think typecasting just goes on what you do when you're not working in a movie. All your
And
other
that's what
stuff
happened
will-
with Tom
That's
Ewell.
true.
That's what happened with Tom Ewell. He just stayed in the comedy things in his.
Well, think
in
of
his
like Bruce
heyday.
Willis's latest movies when he's in an action movie, when he does another John McClane movie,
Uh-huh.
he phones it in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in the movie as John McClane. He's like, I already know this character, so all I got to do is just show up. And I mean,
Right.
That's the issue with a lot of actors is they go back to an old role. They're just basically saying, I'm going to be the exact same person I was.
Burbank, California, 400 Flower Street. Sorry.
Well, I wasn't really into those Die Hard movies, but
No.
they weren't for me.
I mean,
but-
even like the Die Hard book had nothing to do with how John McClane.
well, they
the
have
character,
to. They have to take
because he was
artistic
supposed to be
license,
an older guy who it wasn't his wife that was caught in the building. It was his daughter who was a grown woman in that building, and he had to save her.
Yeah. Well, they have to take artistic license to.
And then even the sequel,
make
he was like a secondary character in his own book in the sequel to Die Hard. So like that's the book compared to the movie, and of course the movie just kind of rolls with it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those movies like Jaws,
Well,
they
Jaws
go over and over and over and over, and it got to
in
the
the
point
book,
where
in
Roger, Cisco and Lieber were getting sick of those Jaws movies.
Well,
coming out,
yeah, that's true because the guy who wrote the book Jaws is like there was more shark in the book than there was actually in the movie that Steven Spielberg did. But
Yeah.
then Steven Spielberg was like, yeah, the shark is a problem. Everyone knows that the shark was the biggest problem with Steven Spielberg, so they just said, okay, we'll just limit it and we'll just save it for the very end.
Yeah.
And it's still a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Now, focusing back on Tom for a second again, in the movie The Girls Can't Help It, and he always seems to play the kind of the same type characters.
Yeah.
In this film, he was a publisher, and in the Girls Can't Help It with Jane Mansfield, he played this movie agent. And so Mansfield's character was dating this mobster. And he wanted her in the pictures, but she couldn't sing or act or anything.
So he was in
So
he
they
was in a
got
tough
Ewell's
position.
character. The mobster wanted him to get his girlfriend in the picture, so he did everything he could to get her in the pictures, but she couldn't sing, and the public just didn't like it. And the mobster ends up getting discovered. That would add to the comedy.
That works.
It did. But but before the mobster
When you can't give the mobster his
No, he
mobster,
gets
if you can't give a
famous,
mobster his
know?
girlfriend
Yeah.
a break,
Yeah.
give the mobster a break
So and that's what
before
was
he breaks
funny.
your legs.
That's what was it didn't have to because he wound up getting on the concert stage.
I mean, even
the
back in
mobster
those
guy
days,
singing.
it's like
And it was just funny,
it's
it's
like
just so.
Vegas was very much like very mob centric. A lot of the mobsters left East Coast to go down there and do that.
Yeah,
which
there's
is why you had like
stuff like this in this film here, and it was just funny because, and then he starts liking the mobster's girlfriend, but he starts getting so famous, he forgets about his girlfriend and all, and sends her off, and it was just one of those like, this is not the way life is movies, but it was so funny though. It was very.
I do
funny.
like those shows and plays that like I just saw a rendition here at the local high school.
Mhm.
They did a play called All About Eve.
Okay.
And of course, they made a movie based on the play, and All About Eve is the whole idea of an up-and-coming actress taking over for an older actress who is past her prime. And then like the younger actress basically, like she shadows the older actress to be just like her. She makes her break, and then she becomes bitter because of it.
I see.
And as a result, like there's another actress behind her. The movie basically ends with another younger actress in her prime taking over the spot of Eve.
Now, this is so much fun. We got 10 minutes left, literally. This went by so quickly.
Cool.
Now, before we sign off, let's talk about Labor Day. What did you do for Labor Day?
Labor Day, I stayed home with my cat. My roommate had I think his brother's still over for a bit.
Okay.
Tried to get a hold of family, but
I did some playing over the weekend. I made $242 over the weekend.
Nice.
nice.
It's not like I was working all day. he'll play for like maybe 3-4 hours or whatever. Yeah, both days, about 4 hours, something like that. So
and
cool.
and then you're coming up to the shopping season too. You have probably about 2 more months or so before you'll be.
Yeah, well, see, the mall wasn't sure they were going to have.
Oh yeah, because they sold the mall.
Got sold, but they recontacted me recently. It looks like they're going to do
That's
it.
good.
So
because I know the Lambros, their family just sold the mall. It was one of the last privately owned malls actually in the nation.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like Starbucks, where everything's Starbucking.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys will come to catch the act there. I assume it'll be changed now. They'll probably get a different type piano. They'll probably put it in a different location.
Well, I mean, like they're not going to change anything out. It's a grand piano.
No, I know that, but I mean,
it's
like where they're going to get it or the type.
They would not get rid of that. I mean, unless it was like part of their sale. Just like
I don't know.
It really depends because
that I don't know.
Yeah, the piano. I don't know who it belongs to.
Remember, so I was like telling you about that like one tool, that one instrument.
Yeah.
The glass harmonica. I'm still looking for one. So if you know anyone,
why don't you contact Morgan Roth Music and see if they can find it for you? That'd be my advice.
I don't know where to look at all.
Just contact them.
Morgan Roth has all the music. I mean, they can always order it, but then you can always ask them if you can find it cheap, like at a pawn shop. I mean, pawn shop
just
is
go
like
through them.
that's basically just like you're looking through a treasure chest of just a bunch of stuff. You don't know what you even want.
A lot of grad.
Well, that would be my advice, just to make sure you don't get burned.
Yeah.
Just go through them. Go to Morgan Roth Music and
tell them what you want. Just go online to Amazon and go shopping online to see how much they cost and see how much you can get a good deal on it. Right. Just look for the cheapest glass harmonica you can find on the internet and be like, okay, and that's where I'm going with, and I don't want to go any higher than this price. Where would you go? I literally would Google glass harmonica, and then automatically Google gives you shopping items.
And you got Morgan Roth can probably look up stuff.
And that's what that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people, even when they go shoe shopping, they look for shoes. They try on the shoes at the store, and then they go home and order it online for like half off. It's basically half the price of what you'd find it at a store.
Yeah, so you can.
Sorry, stores. That's the way shopping is nowadays.
Well, they already know that. I mean, they would talk about that on the world news. Nobody shops at stores anymore.
Yeah,
well, that's going to make Black Friday probably start to fizzle.
Yeah, Black Friday is going to keep on going on here, but
Barnes Noble has a great deal.
Cyber Tuesday. Yeah. It's the Tuesday after Black Friday.
Yeah,
all the deals.
Do you know how many people get on that internet on Cyber Tuesday?
And Black Friday deals that are happening always on Amazon too, even like before it. But don't be deterred to actually buy something when you see a countdown clock.
Yeah.
Ignore the countdown clock. Buy the things that you want. Don't buy the things that are urgently to buy, because you can have you have the tendency to buy, like rush buy.
Yeah.
Shopify. You guys do anything with drop shipping?
I don't know. I haven't. I haven't.
No.
What about a gift shop of some sort?
Well, I usually just like to.
Yeah, I mean,
here comes the
man,
the New York man.
Your prime timing's perfect. We got about 8 minutes left.
Cool.
See, that's perfect.
Come on in.
All right. How's the discussion been going so
it's
far?
It's fine. We're talking about the movie and just talking about other things.
Yeah, I was talking a little bit about sexploitation films and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, now you're standing next to Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And for the people watching, this is Joe Baird, the general manager.
Hello, everyone.
General manager of MCAT.
I'm just winking in her ear.
Yeah, she might turn
See,
on.
that earring is a screw on, or does she have a pierced ear?
Probably.
It's a screw on.
Screw on.
So like I've pretty much become accustomed to being like, hey, is Joel there? It's like, oh no, he's on vacation. And then like, of course, when people call and be like, is Mr. Joel Baird there? And
it's not.
It's
real.
A telemarketer.
And
then I kind of give him I train myself to give him the right act. It's like, who is this? And who are you calling from?
Right.
Yeah, and I just kind of.
It's usually some guy in India.
I want to see a movie called Sorry to Interrupt You, which is about a telemarketer.
Sorry to bother you.
Sorry to bother you.
And I saw the movie at the Roxy. It's really good. I highly suggest it.
The
third act will freak you out.
Is it still
so
there?
out? It's so out of left field.
Very surreal, Asaph.
If you
the preview looked very surreal, and it was interesting because wasn't it about a black guy as being a telemarketer, right?
Okay.
But he's not being very successful, and people say use your white voice, like change from a more
stereotypical.
Use your white voice, and then he changes from his voice, I don't know, somewhere in the course of the movie, and then he achieves a great deal of success.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I'm more interested in the making of this movie because they had like
were they
12 producers, like 12 like media outlets, and just like
now were they
production
implying something as stereotypical when
Yeah,
they had him
the
change his
people
voice?
make
on
on-
the other end of the line would respond better.
to the white sounding
there's a
voice,
lot of discussion about voice, whether or not women's voices sound authoritative compared to men's voice, and do people respond more to a low kind of voice like this than they do to way up high? Will you do this?
Soft.
Will you do this?
I keep hearing soft is better.
You hear soft is better.
Soft is better.
Really?
That's interesting.
Okay.
So, in anticipation of my appearance here on Asaph Cafe, today I did a little research just now on the Wikipedia on the term the 7-year itch.
Okay.
And apparently, there was a play
Yeah.
by that name,
Yeah.
and then that play was adapted
Into the film.
Into the film.
Yeah, I just mentioned that in the story I did on Tom Newell just today. Yeah, he played the role 900 times.
In the stage
Broadway.
On the Broadway stage, yeah.
And then he brought a very fresh performance to the film.
Yeah, he did.
You know?
He was the perfect person for that movie,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
He just knew, like you were talking about knowing the character as well. He knew the character very
He
well.
knew like every line must have been inscribed in
Well,
his brain.
yeah, if you're going to do it 900 times in real life every night. Or
But
like,
for him to bring a freshness to it, that's wonderful, you know.
Well, that's what we're talking about. These people, you might see them want to do one thing, but they're professional actors. They can switch. A lot of them can switch. They can play good guys. They can play comedy guys. They can play
That's
bad
right.
guys. Whatever. Just.
I always believe that the bad guys are real, and I always feel the good guys are actors. So that's kind of weird. When I see a bad guy in a movie, I'm like, that is that person. Whereas I see the good guy in the movie, I say, oh, there's Tom Cruise pretending to be the good guy.
Well, like exactly, because I feel as though like with villains, a lot of actors actually love playing the villain because it's the maniacalness and it's fun for them.
And they're less well known than often is the star. So you know the star from so many other movies, and you're like, well, okay, it's Tom Cruise playing this good guy, or it's another actor playing this good guy.
Right.
Whereas a villain, sometimes they come out of some obscurity, and you think, well, that's the most unique one, you know.
Yeah.
Like Bram
Did you want to
Stoker's
make any
Dracula.
further announcements,
Yeah.
Joel? Because we're almost out of time. Did you want to make any
Oh,
further
yeah.
announcements?
Oh, that's right. What was I going to announce?
Is alive.
Missoula Live is coming, dear viewer, back to MCAT beginning Monday, September the 10th.
Yep,
That's
September
going to be
10th.
our first show of season 5 with Kim Anderson as co-host.
Cool. It's in every other Monday. It's gonna be live from 4 to 5 on Mondays.
I'd like
Yeah.
to appear
And then
on
a
that show
replay.
again, if
Yeah, you're
possible.
certainly
Yeah,
welcome
okay.
to do so this Monday.
This coming Monday?
This coming
I'll have some
Monday.
time Monday if you need a guest.
September 10th. Yeah, come on out.
September 10th. All right, I'll do that.
Yeah.
September 10th. Now, Dan, do you have any final words? We're almost literally out of time. We've got about 2 minutes left.
Make like a high, make a hiney ho.
Nice. that's
Yeah,
good
we were
for
talking about Cab
Pee-wee.
Calloway earlier, too.
Yeah. Oh,
he's
and
in the
Cab Calloway,
he's in the
sure.
Cab Calloway. Scott, you got any final words you want to say?
No, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for sitting in, guys. And isn't that a beautiful set?
Yeah,
Thanks for
it's very
sitting in,
nice.
Scott. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott sets up all these
No, not
backdrops
too
for the
good.
cafe, so it's a lot of fun. What do you think? It's a beautiful backdrop.
Absolutely. That was
And,
just
uh,
saying, it's like a family right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and your
great.
grandfather's going to get a
He's
kick
gonna
out of
love
this.
that,
His
yeah.
grandfather's into Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, yeah. She's quite big. Larger than life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, even though she's been gone
Doll
since
eyes.
1962, she's still.
Isn't that something?
It's just, yeah.
She's been gone now 56 years.
Yep.
Yeah, but her legacy.
No representation of her, what she would look like when she's older.
Yeah, that's why people often fall in love with the young dead stars. Jimmy
Wanderlust.
Dean,
Yeah.
you know, never
we mentioned Jim
age.
Dean earlier.
River
yeah.
Phoenix,
Yeah.
will
Never
never
age.
age, and
Yeah,
so on.
and stuff like that. Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, guys, thanks for sitting in.
Yeah, you
and,
know it.
I'm looking forward to your grandfather seeing this
Oh, me
episode.
too.
You want to say goodbye?
Well,
Close us
goodbye.
out.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Until our next show, I'm Asaph Adonai, Maranatha.